So I created a new folder, a new project, which I'm calling functions, and inside this folder I have my functions.cpp file. So go ahead and create a file as well. So let's implement the function that we saw on the previous video. So I'm going to say double. Okay, that's the return type. So this function is supposed to return some piece of data that has a type of double. Now the function name, area, notice area of square. Okay, so I'm using camel case, and as I've mentioned previously with camel case, the first word is small letter, capital small a, and if you have multiple words, then every other word, its first letter is a capital letter. So capital O and capital S. So that's the name of the function. And so now let's put the parameter list. So it only expects a single number of type double. And of course we could give this parameter any name we want, but we tend to use meaningful names. Okay, so as a beginning programmer, it's going to be a bit strange to be thinking about what name I should use. Okay, just try to use a name that reminds you of what the parameter represents. In this case, this parameter represents the side of a square. Again, I use camel case. Now, once we have that set up, we will use the curly braces to specify that we will create our body. So what should this function do? Well, we're going to create a variable, a box, and that box will contain the result of multiplying side of square times side of square. Okay, now the last thing we must do, and this is very important, the last thing we must do is to return the result. Okay, so the return statement, this return keyword, is always the last line in a function. Okay, there are exceptions, however I will point those out to you. But under normal circumstances, it's always the last line of code. So what do I want to return? I want to return the variable result. Okay, that's it. That's my function. That's step one. Now, step two, I'm going to come down here to main, and I'm going to actually utilize this function. So to utilize the function, we call it. Okay, and to call the function is quite straightforward. We just type its name. Okay, however, we must give it an argument. Okay, so this function expects a number, so we're going to pass in a number. Okay, so let's pass in 2. Now, this is incomplete because if I simply call the function, what happens to this line? Okay, it's giving me back something. So what I must do is to save that something, and to save it is quite straightforward. I create a box, I create a variable. So I'm going to say double result. Okay, so when this function is called, the answer it gives me back will be stored in that variable called result, in this variable. And so now I can print it out. And this is our complete program. Let's compile it and let's run it. Right, after you write it, we gotta test it. So G++. Great, no errors. Let's run it. Again, I am using a.out, but you should be using a.exe. Okay, and we get back 4. It works as expected. In the next video, I'll take this code and I'll dump it into Python Tutor so that we can take another look at it, so that I want to point out a few subtle things, a few nuances, a few things that you need to pay attention to. Okay, so I'm pretty sure one question some of you might be thinking is this variable name result the same as this variable name result? Right? That's a very valid question, because if you remember in class, I always tell you you can only create a variable with the same name once. Okay, and so now here I'm creating 2 variables with the same name. Okay, and the compiler did not complain. So that's something I want to point out to you in the next video. But for now, just remember, we create the function. Okay, so function definition. Okay, and then we use the function by calling it. So we call the function. Okay, and again, very important, when you call the function, you write its name, you use a open and close parenthesis, and inside you provide the argument. All right, I'll see you in the next video.